Hi, and welcome to Zed Games. Recorded live at 4ZZZ Studios in Brisbane and broadcast nationally over the Community Radio Network, Zed Games brings you the latest gaming news, reviews and interviews from across Australia and around the world.
Hello, this is Zed Games. Welcome to another exciting episode of your favourite gaming radio program, broadcast live on ZZZ and heard around Australia on the Community Radio Network. My name's Razor, and joining me are my excellent colleagues, ranked in order of height. Firstly, the excellent Mr. Jody McGregor.
Hello, the excellent Ray.
And second in line, standing at not insignificant height, but still inferior to Jody, I'm afraid, Alana.
Hi, I'm 5'10".
This episode, we are going to be reviewing Wolfenstein: The New Order. Alana's been playing that on what platform?
Xbox One, and loving it.
Yep. And we've all had a go at Transistor, which is available for the PC and PS4. So we'll be talking about that later in the show as well. But to get this episode started, guys, let's recap the week in gaming news headlines. Mr. Jody.
A PR stunt for Watch Dogs has resulted in a bomb squad being called to 9MSN's office in Sydney. A black safe was delivered to the office on Tuesday afternoon, accompanied by a mysterious note that simply read, "Check your voicemail." The reporter in question did not have a voicemail, and when the staff entered the code that was included, the safe began to beep but did not open, prompting fears that it may be a bomb. Staff were sent home, and a bomb squad was called in to open the safe. Inside, they found a copy of the new game Watch Dogs, as well as a promotional hat and beanie. 9MSN editor Hal Crawford said, "This is definitely the other side of the line in terms of what it's safe for a PR company to send anonymously to a newsroom. We weren't panicked at any point, but given there was no note explaining what it was, we had to take sensible precautions."
This is really funny.
It is really funny.
This is hilarious.
Yeah, and very good timing, because remember last week on the show, Jody, we talked about the biggest PR blunders of all time.
Yeah.
This maybe would have made that list, I think.
I don't feel like it's a fail. Like, I don't really think Ubisoft screwed up, but the safe doesn't make me think of Watch Dogs. Like, getting a safe that beeps and doesn't open. What does that have to do with Watch Dogs? Like, it's not what I would think of. If it was a phone, maybe?
Yeah, I'm
like
not sure about
of
this.
his phone or
The
something?
safe connection.
No.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
And you can understand maybe why a journalist who probably has received death threats before in their career would be a little bit suspicious.
If
Just a little
something
bit.
beeps, then you should be suspicious, right?
You get a black box and it starts beeping and it doesn't
Definitely.
open.
Yeah.
I don't think the PR stunt itself was a failure or a mistake. I just think it's the lack of documentation accompanying it.
I think that's the point, though.
Yeah.
It's so Watch Dogs. Like, I don't feel like Ubisoft will get any negative publicity for this. Maybe just be laughed at a bunch. But also 9MSN. Because it's
Yeah.
funny ass.
Yes. The rest of their PR for Watch Dogs has been so good, though. Like,
Yeah.
have you seen the viral video that they made of the guy who uploads stuff onto people's phones so that they can do the stuff you can do in the game, so that they can hack traffic lights?
Yeah, I
and
saw
then they
that
wander
video.
around the street and like they're turning off street lamps and they're opening people's car doors and they're amazed that this guy just like gave them a phone that does all this crazy stuff. And then he gets them to hack a traffic light and a crash happens. They've got like stunt drivers who just slam into each other in the middle of the street, and
Oh
then
my God.
police arrive and these people are freaking out.
That's awesome.
So like they're capable of doing good PR.
See, you know what it is, though? Like, they gave all reviewers Vigilante Edition, the one that has the iconic cap and his little face mask thing. When you put that much effort into PR, it usually means your game isn't very good. And at the same time, the embargo for the review was 5 p.m. yesterday when it launched at 12 a.m. that morning, right? So all of this stuff, like, just by itself kind of makes you like, what's wrong with Watch Dogs? Why have you done this for so long?
Yeah. There's usually a meaning behind all embargoes. There's a reason. But we will talk about Watch Dogs more at length next week. But Alana, you have been playing the game.
I have, and from what I've played, I have been sort of but I've only played about 2 hours, so I kind of don't want to give any opinions on it, but I don't know, nothing outstanding about it so
Okay.
far. Very
Well-
good cover mechanics, though. The cover system's great, so...
If we have some time at the end of the episode, maybe we can get some first impressions of you.
Following a leak of press assets, EA has confirmed that the next game in the Battlefield series is called Battlefield Hardline and will have a cops and robbers theme. The leaked assets suggest that Dead Space studio Visceral Games are developing the game. EA has stated that more information will be revealed on the 9th of June.
I can't wait for all the hardline jokes.
Do you have one prepared, Delana?
You put me on the spot now. I'll give you a hard line. There's going to be a lot. It's going to happen.
It reminds me a bit of Payday. You know, that heist first-person shooting game?
Yeah, Payday's great.
Yeah.
Where you're just the robbers.
Yeah. This could
Kane
be cool.
and Lynch actually has that as well. Kane and Lynch was I think one of the first games to have a multiplayer online mode where it was cops and robbers kind of thing.
Huh.
That was awesome.
Yeah. So I think there's SWAT vans in this and also ground vehicles, but I don't think there are any air vehicles, unfortunately.
To me, it kind of seems like it's an entirely new franchise that they've just put the Battlefield name onto. It doesn't really tie into Battlefield in any way because it's not on a battlefield.
That's right. And the fact that Visceral are behind it and they haven't done a Battlefield game before.
But I do really like the way, the gameplay in Dead Space, and I feel like Dead Space are actually quite creative, so I'm hoping that Visceral will be able to take, what's usually a war shooter and make it something more than that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The Order 1886 has been delayed until 2015. The PlayStation 4 exclusive, which is a third-person cover-based shooter set in a steampunk Victorian England, was previously scheduled for release late this year.
Seems fair enough.
Were you excited about the Order, Ray?
Not terribly. I mean, it seems like Gears of War in steampunk Victorian England, which is a pretty cool concept. It sounds okay, but it wasn't totally high on my watch list, But that said, I'm still a bit worried about the PlayStation 4's lineup for the year. We've had The Witcher delayed, and now this, and also Drive Club was supposed to be a launch title. The game, it's a bit dry.
Primal Carnage Genesis, that Walking with Dinosaurs kind of indie game, which I think was the first PS4 indie game that was announced. It's supposed to come out alongside the PS4, and has now been taken off of the official website and everything. It's just been removed. I think they're working on the original Primal Carnage, which was a shooter, really, PC-based shooter. But it's another game that's just sort of fallen off the list.
Yeah, they sold the new consoles with a stable of games, that were going to come out either at launch or within the launch window. And on Sony's side, we've got Drive Club and The Order, and the Watch Dogs was pushed back as well until this week. So, yeah, it's a bit slim pickings if you're an early adopter of the new gen systems.
Absolutely, it's disappointing.
It's been reported that Samsung are working on a virtual reality headset to compete with the Oculus Rift and Sony's Project Morpheus. According to the source, the headset will feature OLED screens of a similar quality to those found in the second-generation Rift developer kit. It was also said that Samsung are rushing to launch their headset ahead of both Oculus and Sony.
Who are you going to pick?
Who am I going to pick personally?
Yeah.
Probably the Morpheus, because I'm already a PS4 owner. I'm imagining the Oculus Rift is going to take a bit of investment financially to get a rig that's going to run it.
Yeah.
I was of the impression that the Oculus Rift will run on everything, including consoles.
I'm not so sure about that. I think it's
Maybe
a PC
it was just
only.
originally planned for that.
PC and Linux, etc.
Yeah. But I was of the understanding that it's actually pretty low specs. That you can play Team Fortress 2.
I played Team Fortress 2 on a laptop.
Yeah.
I play it on a laptop.
Okay.
It's some of the games, sure, but I think there's going to be plenty of indie stuff available for the Oculus on PC.
Yeah, all the
won't require
the Pokemon ones on emulators and stuff like that as well. So
yeah.
I just feel like Samsung doing this now. It makes sense for Sony because it's for their console. But competing with the Oculus at this point seems dumb because everyone is going to say, oh, it's that thing that's like the Oculus Rift. That's what everyone's already thinking. And I think that, they've already got all this brand loyalty that just competing with it just seems odd.
Yeah.
I guess that's why they're rushing to get it out first.
Yeah, but does that mean it's going to be good? Not necessarily.
And you'll have to buy one of the next generation of Samsung tablets or phones to use it with. It won't work with, if you have a current Samsung tablet.
And it won't work with a PC?
No.
Oh, well...
Yes.
Okay.
That's all.
Yeah.
Never mind.
I'm not going to back Samsung in this race, but I'm kind of glad they entered it because now it's a 3.
Puts more pressure on everyone else.
Yeah, it's like an arms race. And we're going to see VR very soon, I think.
Yeah.
Lucas Pope, the independent developer responsible for last year's acclaimed paperwork simulator Papers, Please, has announced his next project. Return of the Obra Dinn will be a first-person mystery game set aboard a merchant ship in the 19th century. The graphics will be black and white and rendered in a 1-bit style inspired by early Apple Mac games like Dark Castle and Uninvited.
You excited about this one, Jody?
Yeah, I loved Papers, Please. And as soon as I read, nautical mystery set in the 19th century, I was basically sold.
Yeah.
Put me on a boat and
That's
I'm
all
happy.
you need. There's the boats? What?
That's it for the news for this week. Next up, we'll be talking about Transistor.
Hello and welcome back to Zed Games. You just heard Laser Destroyer System with Have Fun Dying from the soundtrack to Always Sometimes Monsters. Those are all fun names to say.
Super
Yeah.
fun.
So this week I have been playing a new indie game called Transistor from Supergiant, who are the guys who made Bastion, which is one of my favorite games. So I was pretty excited about this. It's an action RPG. Like Bastion was, but it's a very different thing because that was a fantasy anime kind of thing, and this is sci-fi. It's set in a futuristic city called Cloudbank, which has a sort of... It's like a Neo-Tokyo from Akira, but Art Deco.
Though it should be said, it still kind of has an anime feel.
Yeah.
It's still like steampunky, cyberpunky anime art style. It's awesome.
It's very brightly coloured, and there's gables everywhere, and stained glass windows, and a lot of old-fashioned stuff, alongside sleek motorbikes.
Yeah.
And it's
It's kind of
2020 and 1920 at the same time. So it looks gorgeous. Just running around on the streets is really pretty to watch.
And the sound that complements that is also beautiful.
Yeah,
The music in this
Bastion.
game,
The music is
absolutely.
Incredible music.
I wouldn't know how to describe the kind of music that's in Transistor. It's like some kind of dark trip hop is
Yeah.
what I would call it. But most people would be like, what the hell is that? And you're like, well, it's Transistor, really.
Yeah, it's electronic post-rock. It's like,
Yeah.
what?
Yep.
It's really hard to describe.
Some automatically hipster-sounding name.
But it's worked into the game because a lot of it, your character, Red, is a singer. So a lot of the songs are supposed to be your songs that you're hearing. But you, as Red, have lost your voice at the beginning of the game. And so part of the story is about you traveling across the city to track down the people who took that from you and get your revenge on them. And the game starts right in the middle of its story with you, just lost your voice, standing over a dead body with a huge high-tech sword stuck in it.
And roughly no explanation of anything.
Not at all. It's so
and it
baffling.
keeps up with that.
Yeah, it's very willfully confusing. But that sword, that huge, oversized, kind of anime-looking sword, is the Transistor, and it's your weapon, but also your companion and guide, because you don't have a voice, but it does. So it's talking to you throughout the game and suggesting where to go.
And I'm also pretty sure it has the voice of the guy you pull it out of.
Yes, it
I'm
does.
yeah. So it has this kind of cool, jazzy personality in this sword thing that you have, but it also absorbs other people. When they die, it sort of absorbs strength from other people. So it's this cool gadget thing, but it's also really morbid in a vampire-y kind of way.
Yeah, it keeps a digital copy inside itself of other people, and then those people turn into powers that you can use with the sword in battle. Between you and the bad guys are a legion of robots called the Process, who you have to fight a lot using those powers. And the combat system is weird because it's a pause-based system that's halfway between a turn-based strategy system and a real-time thing, where you can stop the combat, plan out your next bunch of moves and which powers you can use, and then watch that play out in bullet time in 2 seconds.
It's almost like VATS in Fallout.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I describe it, as being really similar to VATS. And yeah, that's why I keep calling it a sword thing, because it actually sort of serves more as some kind of technological perk memory bank than a sword, really.
Yeah, you get so many different powers you can stick in it,
Yeah.
and then each of them can be used in 3 different ways.
Yeah, so there's passive, aggressive, and then to upgrade something else.
Yeah.
And so when you upgrade something else, it creates something that you wouldn't really expect of this perk, and you fully have the ability to customize it exactly to your playstyle, pretty much. It's kind of hard to explain, though.
Yeah, well, one of the powers, Spark, the one that shoots out a scatter of bombs, that's what it does when you use it as an active power, but then you can use it as an upgrade for another power where it splits that power's use. So there's an ability called Friend that you can use to reprogram robots, so they're on your side. If you use Spark to upgrade that, then it'll split and a whole bunch of robots will become your friends for a few seconds.
I think the heal one does something kind of similar. Like if you add heal onto something, then it means that, you'll automatically heal off whatever you get and stuff like that. So it actually does take quite a bit of experimentation to figure out what certain things do, because it doesn't really hand it to you that obviously.
No, not at all.
And I also think a lot of people would play very, very differently. And I kind of was annoyed at the start of the game with not really knowing what I liked initially and then having to figure that out. And it is kind of a long learning process.
Yeah, you unlock a lot of these abilities, and at the start you don't have super interesting ones. Like you slowly get them and build up this roster of more interesting powers, like one that turns you invisible, one called Jaunt that teleports you around, and there's a lot of complexity to it. It does get more interesting as it goes on, but I didn't love the combat in this. I did find it a bit of a slog to be looking at all of these gorgeous backgrounds and listening to this amazing music while I was just sort of jogging from fight to fight.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of combat in this game, isn't there?
A huge
It is very intricate. So, like, while I actually honestly didn't enjoy the combat that much, I feel like I have this kind of respect for it, where I just want to be like, this is outstanding as an RPG, especially the fact that it's indie. It's just like something that you kind of feel like that you should get behind, and maybe it'll be important retrospectively in a few years, but I didn't actually enjoy playing through it that much, and I wouldn't recommend it that highly. So I don't know, it's this thing where I was glad to have experienced it, but I didn't love it. It was just so over the top and kind of hard to wrap your head around, and yeah, this really long, frustrating learning process. And the really interesting thing about it, or the thing that I probably liked the most, or maybe disliked the most, appreciated the most, was that instead of dying when you lose your health, you actually get one of your perks or your favorite little things taken away from you, so it fully changes the way that you have to fight. And sometimes that can be really, really frustrating, but it also gives you more incentive to avoid that than just, most games where you die and just respawn. It's beyond that in a way.
Yeah, it forces you to try an experiment with your powers, and you might then realize that there's a much better way of playing that you weren't using because you were lazily relying on just using the one thing over and
it's
over.
Easy to do that, to favor little things, and it takes them away from you and stuff like that too. So,
and it also encourages you to use your powers different ways, because you unlock character profiles of those people if you use powers in your different slots. And
based on the people that you've killed and the slots, the little things that you've taken from their dead bodies. It's just,
and
that's so morbid.
There's a whole bunch of them already in the transistor at the start of the game that you unlock. Well, not all of them. I found out that some of them weren't integrated in there, but just recorded. Like you're in there and you're not dead.
So maybe it's other people who've used it?
Well, some of it is people who have just sort of had their digital essence placed inside it on purpose. Like you can find all of the villains of the game inside there before you even fight
and obviously
them.
They're not dead yet.
Obviously.
Yeah,
so,
true.
And reading their profiles by unlocking them, by using them in all of the different slots, you can find out like their motivations and what's really going on.
And they're
these
so
important
relatable.
revelations of like the plot, which is weird because like having finished it, that stuff doesn't come out in the cutscenes or the dialogue. You can finish this game, and if you haven't read obsessively every little thing,
won't make sense.
You will have no idea what's going on. You have to go out of your way to read blocks of text.
I didn't do that, but I did really like that there was motives given for every single person you fight. It's one of the few games that I played where I felt like every single person that you fight has a completely relatable or understandable motive to attack you. And you're like, oh, sorry. I get what you're trying to do here, and I apologize for that. But I didn't read everything, and to me, it was just extremely confusing, but in a way that I really liked. That it didn't tell you anything at all or give you spoon feed you this narrative. You were just like, this is what's happening, decide for yourself. And I don't know, I really enjoyed that, and I really liked the sort of allure of being so confused about everything. But now that I know you can read stuff, I kind of wish you had.
I found it a bit refreshing as well, the fact that it didn't hold your hand in any way, but I found up front the learning curve was very intimidating, and I really had to put a lot into this game to get past that initial hump. And I think that a lot of players will not get that far. I think that the sort of the vagueness at the start and the fact that it doesn't explain its mechanics to you in a straight up front way could put a lot of people off initially. Yeah,
it's not as user-friendly as Bastion. Just like even looking at the upgrade menu annoyed me.
Yeah.
I did not like using it. I did not like clicking and dragging that stuff around, and sometimes you would put a power in a slot and then it would bounce out of that slot, for no good reason. You just hadn't clicked in exactly the right spot.
I didn't experience that, but that would have annoyed the crap out of me too.
There's a lot of button pressing just to get things done.
Yeah.
I did also have a bit of an issue with the camera, where occasionally in fights the camera would just sort of cut off on a weird angle and I couldn't see things properly.
Yeah, I had that as well.
Yeah, and that was, quite common and a little bit frustrating too. Especially when the game is so pretty, and that's probably one of the best things about it, aside from, being really confused all the time, which I really liked, was that it was just so damn pretty. So having that kind of skewed all the time really sucked.
I didn't actually enjoy being confused all of the time. At a certain point, I really just wanted them to get it over with and let me find out what was going on through all of those gorgeous cutscenes and, well-written and well-acted dialogue. But at a certain point, you realize that stuff is really perfunctory. Like, the people aren't saying very much of anything, and you're not seeing anything really interesting happen. It's just pretty things. But the actual story is hidden in blocks of text. There's that storytelling rule of show, don't tell.
Yep.
You want the motivations of characters to come across in what they do, not in just explaining things to you. And by putting them all in the written word, in paragraphs of information, I think they're breaking that rule in a way that...
The intent there could be to give more focus to the transistor and show what an amazing thing it is. Like, that they're trying to say that it, sort of knows everything, that kind of thing. But for the most part, I felt like it was intentionally confusing. Like, I feel like they did that on purpose and they wanted most people to be confused.
Yeah, they want to reward the kind of person who spends a lot of time playing around with things and delving into the backstory. But Bastion was such a welcoming game, a game you could sit anybody down with and they'd be able to play it and have a good time, that seeing them go to a much more sort of a core model of a game for gamers and, nerds and people who read TV tropes is a bit frustrating. Like, they were so good at making a game that I could sit anyone down and watch them play, and this is like a game that a lot of people will struggle with, not just playing, but understanding.
Yeah, like Ray was saying, it is totally not approachable. It's almost like it doesn't want you to be there at the start, and it's frustrating, and it takes a really long time to learn. And there's definitely a handful of flaws there.
Yeah, I ended up wishing that it was more like Bastion in a way, because that's sort of what I was expecting, like kind of Bastion in the future.
Yeah.
I mean, call me naive. But I found, I think I am actually the audience they were targeting, like obsessive nerds who play too many games. But I found that I wished it was sort of scaled back in complexity a little bit.
I almost feel like they wanted to get away from the boy in Bastion, like it, from someone who, if you didn't know better, you'd think that it was a kid's game. And I feel like this is their way of trying to, be that hardcore PC gamer kind of game, because it is really, I guess, like a hardcore RPG with the way that the system actually works. And I feel like, that was some kind of maybe internal struggle that they were having, got all insecure about it or something. Yeah. They were like, everyone thinks we make kids' games. What do we do?
So we're talking about Transistor, which is available for the PC and the PS4. What did you guys play it on?
PC.
Okay, I played it on the PS4.
What was it like with a controller?
Well, I'm not sure because I haven't tried the PC version to compare, but it played pretty well.
Okay.
You play with the mouse and keyboard?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then do you click where you want to go? Or
Yeah. It feels like it was made for PC. It feels like that.
Right, because when I played, I directly controlled my player with the
you can do that with WASD as well,
yeah.
or you can click where you want to go.
Yeah,
I clicked.
Both works.
Okay. Yeah, maybe it would be better with a mouse and keyboard in that respect because of the the isometric view.
Yeah.
And the fact that you have to plot your movement so precisely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I feel like the VAT system, like how it is like VATs from Fallout, I feel like that is sort of designed for PC as well. But I mean, if it works on both and you didn't tell the difference, then job well done.
Yeah, I couldn't. I would have thought that it would have played the same on the PC. So there you go.
Yeah.
Any closing remarks, guys, that you want to add?
Listen to the soundtrack for this game.
It's available, the entire thing, on YouTube.
Yep.
Yeah, I would totally recommend that.
Well, let's hear a song from the soundtrack now. This is by Darren Korb, who is the composer of the entire soundtrack. This one's called The Spine. You are listening to Zed Games, your favorite gaming radio program. Razor, Jody, and Alana with you. Now we're going to be talking about Wolfenstein: The New Order. Mm-hmm. Alana, you've been playing that.
I have. So I feel like I should put a disclaimer out there and say that the first 3 or 4 hours, maybe less, maybe more-ish, were truly awful. This game starts off in one of these generic kind of turret sequences where you're like, oh my god, shoot down enemy planes. You're like, wow, this is original. And then you crash and you have to, get on another turret and just shoot people. And it's all very explosions and over the top and extremely dull. And I was annoyed at the fact that I had to finish the game because it was so generic in every way. But then it sort of gets to a point really seamlessly, like I couldn't pinpoint when that actually is, that the game just snaps, and I didn't want to put it down. And like at the moment, I should be playing Watch Dogs, but all I actually want to do is replay Wolfenstein. It had that much of an effect on me, and especially as a person who doesn't like first-person shooters, I feel like that is super significant. So
have you ever played Wolfenstein 3D? Or...
I have not, no.
Okay.
Because what year did that come out in, Jody?
That came out in the prehistoric era when you and I were young,
What,
the 90s.
1992 or something? And Alana, when were you born?
93.
93.
Okay,
so you missed out by a few years.
Yeah.
You started on the last time a Wolfenstein game was good.
Yeah, well, I did play the one on the 360, and this one is dramatically different to that from my experience. That one was like weirdly gothic, and I don't know, it was just didn't have a very good atmosphere, and I didn't really put much time into it. But like I said, I'm sure I would have done the same with the New Order if I hadn't have stuck with it. So it gets to this point where you, after trying to take down the Nazis, you fail, and then you are in this asylum for like 15 years because you've been so messed up. And I don't really know what happened to you. I think that maybe you can't talk or something. And as soon as you'd be able to talk, ironically, the nurse that looked after you for all that time just bangs you immediately, which was super strange, really out of place. But so you end up busting out of there, and you basically restart the resistance. And there is a bit of an issue there where a lot of the game sort of lacks atmosphere, where it's like implied that the Nazis are super evil. Like, do they even need to say that anymore, really? And you're sort of, aware that you need to save the people, but you never actually see any kind of oppression. All you ever really see is Nazis, just like lots and lots of Nazis. And this guy, Death's Head, who is like the main bad guy in the game, sort of torturing people and stuff. So you never really see oppression.
Right. That 15-year gap, though. So it starts in the 40s and then jumps to like 1960?
Yeah, I don't know the exact dates, but so it starts like during the war, you lose the war. And then, you've got that 15-year gap to when... Yeah, basically.
Alana,
they do say that.
World War II.
They basically tell you that.
Right. So it's an alternate reality in which the Nazis were victorious.
Yeah.
Every alternate reality is one in which the Nazis are victorious, right?
And you're single-handedly responsible for that.
Not single-handedly. There's like 3 of you. So it's like, mostly, yeah.
And you played the character, was it
B.J.
B.J.
Blazkowicz.
Who's the main character in all the Wolfenstein games.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yeah.
He's a douchebag. Least likable character in the game, for sure. And it's just like all these parts where there's a lot of stuff in this game where you're not shooting and you're just solving these like quite simple little puzzles, but I really loved every single one of them. Just the little things that you have to do are just awesome. And he'll just crap on about stuff, like just in this really like kind of deep, low tone, monotone voice where he's like swimming through this water and he's like, oh, I remember going down the well when I was a kid to get Dad's watch, but it wasn't as cold as this. And he does stuff like that all the time, and you're just like, really, man? Like, you're in the middle of a war. What is your problem? Like, yeah, this sucks. It's obvious. And he just goes on about that for ages. But all the other characters kind of have this Bioshock feel. So you sort of go around and sort of round up other people in the Resistance when it all starts out. And there are a few people who already exist in this really cool secret underground base thing. And one of them's this chick who just, if you go near her, she just yells at you. And I don't know, they all feel really Bioshocky. Like there's this paraplegic woman who was also in the war, and she's probably like the head of your team and just this like total badass. And then crazy chick who looks after all the documents, who's just like really kind of OCD and crazy. And there's a guy who's like actually disabled, who would be I wouldn't know what kind of disability he has, but he can't speak, and he's like this just massive butch guy who tends to I suppose he's like really caring, but can't say anything, and he's just like the big gentle giant kind of character. And there's angry people and all that stuff, but it's not your generic war characters. There's not just people barking orders at you for no reason, and every single person is really invested in the cause, and you feel like if anyone dies or if something happens to them, that they would actually care. And you kind of like evaluate who they are as characters, which I feel is freaking amazing for an FPS.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're not really used to having very in-depth character development in first-person shooter games. I mean, that's something that we haven't really seen much.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, I mean, if it were another genre, then maybe I wouldn't be so appreciative of it, but in a first-person shooter, it's just outstanding and refreshing to actually have that, and the sense of companionship that you have as well is really, really nice in this game. It's really well done.
Yeah, are these characters all American?
No. So
where are you? Are you in Germany?
You go to the moon at one point.
Wow,
so
okay.
you're all over the place. Yeah, there's a lot of like different little things you have to do, and you can stealth your way through the entire game as well. Like one of the first missions after the little prequel where you lose the war is you have to break into, I think it's in London. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure it's in London though. You have to break into a prison to get your old war buddies out who've been like locked in there and about to die, and you can pretty much stealth your whole way in there and then get them out, and then after that you have to go to this hidden underwater tomb that's been there for forever and hasn't been open for centuries to get this like high-tech technology that you really need to be able to actually kill the Nazis, and there's like a reason they didn't use it that's also really cool and like quite well developed, and the stuff in there is just awesome. And you go to the moon, you go to space, I just love space stuff in video games as well. And like if there's an explosion there's like the thing where you like will fly back like 6 meters or something because there's an explosion. That's just stuff like that's really, really cool. The physics in space were awesome. What else is there?
Do the Nazis in this, they have crazy technology, right? So like they're robo-Nazis basically.
They're not as impressive as I wanted them to be.
Right.
They're when people talk about Wolfenstein, they're like, oh, the Nazis have rule the world with their technology, but you don't really see any of that technology. I mean, there's lots of laser weapons. You can dual wield them. You can dual wield like laser rifles and, shotguns and stuff like that, which is ridiculous, but there isn't really that much presence of cool technology. There's like U-boats and I don't know, none of it feels particularly outstanding, which I was a little disappointed by because I was expecting they talk about it to really see a lot of it.
Are there miniguns or chain guns or Gatling guns of any kind?
Well, yeah, there's plenty. Like, there's stuff that you, like if there's a turret, you can like rip the thing off the turret and just keep shooting at people and stuff. And some of your weapons you'll need to reload with actual ammunition, and some of them have like these little socket things on the walls that like recharge them. So depending on like where you are, especially in space, they all need to be recharged. So if you kill someone, you can usually pick up their batteries and like put it back in your gun, or stop at these little things that are all over the walls to recharge everything. And you have like your main weapon probably is this thing called, I wouldn't know how to pronounce it, but it's like a laser Kraftwerk. This laser Kraftwerk? I don't know. But it's like this giant thing that you get upgrades for the entire game, and it can also like cut through certain materials. You can like put it into this cutter mode where it just like burns through things, and you can like cut little holes for you to fit through and stuff like that to like sort of change the way you approach environments. And that is a particularly creative one. And there is also this suit that you find in the secret cool underground vault that you don't get to use, that the woman who I said before who can't walk actually ends up being able to walk when she puts the suit on. So she like turns into this like freaking badass Iron Man type woman, and it's just the coolest thing ever. But yeah, in terms of technology, not that impressive.
Okay.
But I feel like the difference in the environments, like the fact that they are also colossally different, you go on these like really, really different journeys, is probably one of the most appealing parts, as well as actually feeling like, you're part of a resistance and part of a team that's really established. It's just, I don't know. I don't know if I should say it's good narrative, because, I mean, the story, just aside from, going to space and then going underwater and then going to prison and then going to like a concentration camp, you just go all over the place. The story's fairly standard. It's just the way that the campaign, I guess, is what's good about it. What I should mention, though, with the concentration camps, it does not take that nearly as seriously as it should. You're like, just, here's a concentration camp. Have fun. Like, it doesn't make any kind of statement on that, and I felt like that was... They should have, if they're going to include something that serious in the game, like there's a part where you nearly get locked inside this room where you're about to be burnt to death. They really just didn't put any emphasis on that at all.
Yeah, I guess like subtlety isn't really a part of the Wolfenstein's language, you know?
Yeah, it's just a little uncomfortable. Yeah.
But I am pleased that the game overall is good. I mean, you seem to be very excited about it because the return to Cult of Wolfenstein from ages ago, I wasn't too happy with that. I didn't believe that was sort of a worthy successor.
What was bad about it?
I don't know. It just seemed like just a straight up FPS game with no imagination.
Yeah, for the most part, all of the enemies you fight in this are exactly the same. There's dogs, which are Kampfhunds. So much German. And then there are like bigger robotic dogs. And then there's like commanders, Nazis, and then like 2 kinds of heavy Nazis. So that's like it really. And that, like, initially when you don't have the cool campaign to glue you in, is just all you've got is just these like really repetitive, same crap over and over again kind of enemies and a lot of mechs, and nothing's really creative. And if it didn't end up changing, then it would have just been so awful and generic. Even though the gameplay is perfectly good and perfectly fun, it's just so shooty. And I can imagine that that the other games might have suffered from that a lot.
Yeah. Well, military first-person shooter campaigns have just been done so many times that if I just get one that just plays it straight, I almost can't deal with it.
Yeah,
You know,
this
it has to
absolutely
do
doesn't
something
feel
different.
military.
There
Yeah.
needs to be something that makes it stand out from those other dozens and dozens of first-person shooter games set in military.
It doesn't feel like a military game at all, because I suppose you aren't part of the military. You're part of quite a small resistance who have to infiltrate Nazi headquarters in various different places to get some of their technology to beat them in the end. So you are the underdog. You're not, in a war being barked at by all these people. It kind of is weird that nobody helps you most of the time. They're just like, oh, Blazkowicz, you go do it again. And you're like, okay, I'll do this.
He's used to taking on Nazi hordes.
Yeah, and they're like, you were made for killing Nazis. And you're like, oh, why won't you help me? So, I don't know. Aside from obviously the lots of guns and the ridiculousness of being able to dual wield shotguns and assault rifles, it really doesn't feel generic in any way, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Excellent. We're talking about Wolfenstein: The New Order. What platform did you play on that?
I played it on the Xbox One, but I also believe it's available on PS4, PS3, Xbox 360, and PC.
Yep.
I believe.
Yep. Any closing remarks that you'd like to make?
Look, it's my favourite game so far this year, and I'm not a first-person shooter person, so I would literally recommend it to everyone, so long as they are willing to stick through those first really boring hours at the start.
Excellent. Thanks, Alana.
I should say, speaking of Wolfenstein still, I just got a tweet from someone called Cade514 who said, "For me, the transition from boring game to awesome game happened when I stole Hitler's nuclear cannon-armed submarine." So that gives you an insight of what Wolfenstein is like.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm getting that.
Yeah. I was sold when I heard the word moon.
Okay, now we've had a chance to play... Alana and I have had a chance to play Watch Dogs very briefly, so we can't give our full thoughts tonight, but we will be talking about it much more in depth next week on the program, so don't miss it. But Alana, how much of the game have you played so far?
I think 2 or 3 hours. And then, like, the start of that was, like, the first mission prologue, I guess, and then I did some free roaming stuff, so...
It really needs to be taken into consideration the amount of hype and marketing around this game.
I am really concerned that it's given me some kind of bias, that because it had so much money put into marketing that I'm expecting more from it. But, what I've got is not a bad game, but I'm sort of just, meh.
Yeah, because it would be a lot different if this game sort of just snuck up on you out of nowhere and maybe surprised you, whereas now we have all these expectations of it, especially after stealing the show at E3 2012.
Yeah, it was like the first game announced for next-gen consoles, I think.
And it just looked absolutely amazing and blew everyone's mind, and now we're always going to sort of use that as a reference point as opposed to just coming into this game cold.
Yeah, and it's kind of a shame, and there are a lot of people comparing it to Grand Theft Auto. I don't know about you, but... I don't feel like it's actually similar to Grand Theft Auto. I don't feel like it plays the same. It's literally just set in a city, open world. I feel like that's the only similarity, and it's getting a lot of kind of harsh criticism because it's being compared to Grand Theft Auto 5. You can't do that to anyone. You'll always lose.
So, like, the driving doesn't feel similar? Or?
Well, I mean... No, like it doesn't have that same kind of vibe as Grand Theft Auto, and your motives aren't the same. Like, while the mechanics in the driving sense are quite similar, and like, cops chase you down and you blow up cop cars and stuff like that, it still is obviously distinct from Grand Theft Auto and doesn't feel like it's trying to be Grand Theft Auto.
It feels a lot more dense, the city.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot more interactive elements than in Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
I found GTA 5, the world seemed very alive due to the pedestrians and the traffic.
Just the physics in that game.
Yeah, and it seems like I could really disrupt it. In this one, in Watch Dogs, every pedestrian has a story, I guess. You can kind of see who they are in one sentence, like this guy is a rich banker or something like that. And that kind of felt really immersive to me, the fact that each of the people on the street has their own little story.
Yeah, I find the biggest difference in atmosphere, specifically in Watch Dogs 2 Grand Theft Auto, is that in Watch Dogs you feel like a god. You feel like you're sort of above everyone else, whereas in Grand Theft Auto you kind of feel like a ragamuffin who's just like sent out to do some ridiculous stuff. But in Watch Dogs, you can find out information on everyone like via your phone, and it I don't know, it doesn't feel like that. I don't know, that city vibe just from Grand Theft Auto just isn't the same. And yeah, the way that you can interact with stuff like traffic lights as well is really, really cool to like make cops, crash into each other and stuff like that.
Yep.
A lot more chaos.
Yeah.
What do you think of Aiden, the main character, and his iconic cap?
Iconic cap. Look, that's hilarious that
I know.
They call it the iconic cap.
You can't just say something as iconic. It has to like earn the iconic status, right?
That's right. And
I just jumped straight to that.
Look, his cap's fine. He seems like a bit of a cookie cutter, gruff white guy hero,
Who's like pretending to be sad about something but doesn't quite cut it. I don't like him at all.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the supporting cast is a bit more interesting than him.
So far, I've liked the other characters, like, not loved them, but I've liked them a lot more than Aiden Pierce, who is just generic white guy.
He's got brown hair. Does he have stubble?
Yes.
Is he angry about stuff just like all the time?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, cool.
He's like, Booker DeWitt 2.0.
Yeah. And he's got a pretty nice trench coat.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. And a nice little face mask thingy, and he's well decked out. He's just boring as fuck.
Yeah. Okay, let's wrap this episode up because we're nearly out of time. But first, let's recap some of our social media stuff.
Sure thing. We are on Facebook and we're on Twitter at thatthing/ZedGamesAU, and we have a website at zgamesau.net.
Sweet.
And we're excellent on all of them, so you should check them out.
Definitely. And you can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes.
Awesome. All right, well, that's going to bring us to the end of this episode, guys. As usual, thank you very much for listening. We have one more track to play before we leave and hand over to the Dykes on Mics. This one, I'm not going to be able to pronounce this song title. Jody, can you help me?
This is another one from the Wolfenstein soundtrack. This is Die Käfer with Mond Mond Ja Ja. Die Käfer is German for the Beatles.
Awesome. We'll catch you guys next week.
Thanks for listening. This has been Zed Games, recorded live in Brisbane on 4ZZZ and heard nationally thanks to the Community Radio Network. For more information on the show and to join the Zed Games community, head to our website, zgamesau.net. That's spelt Z-E-D, or send us an email at contact@zgamesau.net. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter. Zed Games is produced with the assistance of the Community Broadcasting Foundation.